So welcome to the podcast episode. This first part, I've split this into two because it's quite long. So the first part is Frank Maiwald and Anthony Chavez. So the second part will feature Jason Thomas and Nuno Lario. The Lario one will have the full transcript at the end of the episode, but as I say, this one is Maiwald and Chavez. Like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy. This has some extra information in which wasn't included in the video, just bits and bobs of background data and stuff like that. There's only so much background data you can actually put in these without having to show a full research transcript and everything like that on the information and quoting sources and everything. So to make it half decent to listen to, this is kind of just the unedited version of the video in sound format, with any extra information audio described on there as well. Okay, so I was going to move on from the McCasland Disappearance pattern, but guess what? The list mentioned previously doesn't end there. There are more missing people, missing researchers and scientists that are related to Los Alamos National Laboratory and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and generally the satellite and space technology industry altogether. So going forward, the format will be the bio of the person that we're looking at, and then the case statements, which is just a timeline and case details. Then I'll do an addendum video after I've considered each person, and a conclusion separate at the end of just my own thoughts and ponderings about, looking into this, what I kind of think might be going on. Okay, so with the addendum, there are some details which, after further investigation, are a little bit different. There's not much, nothing that dramatically changes anything, but they're just slight things, and just for like reliability and accuracy, I need to make sure everything I put out is 100% correct from what I know, just to have that reliability, that trustworthiness that what I'm doing is actually just referencing things and not pulling things from wherever that I am actually looking into this as thoroughly as possible. So, I mean, obviously, I at the moment I kind of struggle with the battle of time. So I think realistically, I'm just going to have to triple check some details, and I just have to bite the bullet and put in the extra work and the hours to provide the information that's as reliable as possible. So in future, I don't have to do the addendums. So the other people we're going to look at are Frank Maiwald, Anthony Chavez, Jason Thomas, Nuno Lario. So them to start with. The list could change going forward, but who knows? Don't forget as well to like and subscribe and comment, because all that helps massively, and it's great to hear your comments. Any sort of constructive criticism or any thoughts or ponderings that you can put in as well. Any other things to look at that you think all of us might find interesting, that's more than welcome. There is extra information as well in the podcast, but the podcast won't be out until, there's 4 cases so far that I'm extending this by, so it won't be out until I've done all 4 of these, and it'll be a combination of all of these with some extra content added in. Only little bits on this one. There's not much, probably about 2-3 minutes worth of extra stuff in there, but as these episodes go on, I'm sure that will become a lot more, because I tend to go a bit geekier on the podcast, and like more sort of background data, more kind of like the underlying perhaps physics papers that are covered, the underlying bios of each person or something like that, probably in this. I'm just surmising at the moment, because I haven't actually done the rest of these yet. Okay, but anyway, yeah, like and subscribe, and hope you enjoy the content. So here we go. The next person in this series is Frank Maiwald. Personal profile of Maiwald is thus. Maiwald was born on the 24th of June 1964 in Ratingen, Germany, and died the 4th of July 2024, aged 61, in Los Angeles, California. Maiwald worked at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory from 1999 until his death in July 2024. His roles included serving as technical group supervisor and contributions to projects such as AMR, the Jason 3, the Ocean Altimetry mission. Jason 3 is a global ocean monitoring satellite launched in 2016. SWOT, the Surface, Water and Ocean Topography, a next-generation radar satellite launched in December 2022. Key instrument aboard that is the CARIN, the car brand radar interferometer. That was developed partly by JPL, and I think the other people that worked along the development, it was the Canadian Space Agency, the British, maybe, I think the French and German space agencies as well. So other projects he worked on was the COWVR, Compact Ocean Wind Vector Radiometer, a microwave radiometer installed on the International Space Station, developed by JPL and the US Space Force in collaboration with each other. That's NASA and the US Space Force in collaboration with each other to develop this, by the way. Because the Jet Propulsion Laboratory is under NASA. He also worked in the project AMR, Jason 3, Advanced Microwave Radiometer, is the Jason 3 and Sentinel-6 sort of missions. AMR is a microwave radiometer used on ocean altimetry satellites like Jason 3 and Sentinel-6, like previously mentioned. HiFi, or HIFI, heterodyne instrument for the far infrared, a high precision far infrared spectrometer on the Herschel Space Observatory. HiFi, or HIFI, is the heterodyne instrument for the far infrared, a high precision infrared spectrometer on the Herschel Space Observatory. HiFi provided extremely high spectral resolution detection of water in space star formation dynamics. So common overlaps with these are like microwave sensing, radar instrumentation, remote sensing, Earth observation, space-based measurement. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll look at his ResearchGate profile just to get a rough idea of some of his research projects. Let's have a look. Okay, so RF electronics design of the Compact Ocean Wind Vector Radiometer. Again, as we mentioned previously, instrument for Sentinel-6, microwave radiometer for the Juno mission to Jupiter, demonstrating the capability of new generation of small satellite weather sensors. Again, sensors on spacecraft systems. It keeps coming up again and again with these people. I think it's like, these kind of sensors and actuators and stuff. But I mean, a lot of these spacecraft will have that and they'll be based around that anyway. But I don't know. I find that quite interesting, Reliable and stable radiometers for Jason 3, discovery mission to determine the interior structure of gas and ice giants. Interesting. Fabrication and test of terahertz extended interaction klystrons. Detection of OH plus and H2O towards Orion KL. Herschel HiFi measurements on the ortho para ratio in water towards Sagittarius B2M and W31C. Again, detection of OH plus and H2O plus towards Orion KL. Several papers on here. The Herschel heterodyne instrument for the far infrared. The chest spectral survey of star-forming regions peering into the protostellar shock L1157-B1 to shock dynamics. Okay, so there's some of the research papers that he's done previously. We'll just quickly look at his LinkedIn. As far as I can gather, this is the correct Frank Maiwald. It has all the dates line up with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, Senior RF Engineer, Jet Propulsion, 1999, PhD in Applied Physics, University of Cologne. Again, that lines up exactly with his education background and the time he served at NASA and JPL. Okay, so we can see there is a lot of instrumentation space technology on there. Now, there was no cause of death divulged. He was married for 25 years to Ewan J. Maiwald. One thing I found interesting, so I looked at the JPL employee database and I cross-referenced it with his former colleagues on his memorial page, and even people that were there when he first started at JPL, I won't name them, are not on the JPL employee database. It's like I looked everywhere, I couldn't find any of them that were on there. Now, this is in no way doubting or discrediting their credentials. It's more a note on the transparency of JPL themselves, JPL and NASA themselves. Again, that transparency aspect. But again, not one person on his memorial page that said they worked with them. I had a look through. They're not mentioned there. These guys have published research. I've seen it. They have published research stating they work for JPL, NASA, or the rest of it. Legitimate research, they do work there, but they're not listed. And I don't know why they're not. Could be some sort of normal explanation, perhaps some sort of subcontracted position within JPL, and so they're not officially on there. Could be that. Yeah, make of that what you will. It's kind of tricky to go into this further, as there is nothing known about his cause of death, any sort of situational evidence or case summaries. There's nothing. So in all honesty, this could just be a genuine death that happened in conjunction with everything else. On the surface, it does appear that way. Family just wanting the privacy to mourn, everything like that. And absolutely, either way, whatever the reason is, I'm sure that's the case. And, condolences to his family and all those kind of affected. But, there is zero rumours of any suspicious circumstances. It does have that hallmark of a grieving family. However, it doesn't completely rule out foul play. It only limits the plausibility of it. If a party wanted to make something appear as a natural death, it is conceivable that they could. What is perhaps less suspicious is the combination of natural deaths and missing persons. These are more likely to fall within some sort of statistical bell curve. So obviously there's so many missing persons each year, so many murders, so many natural deaths, and you have this kind of bell curve. And so one year, you could say, well, all these have happened simultaneously. It's just a statistical anomaly that it falls within the range of plausibility. It's fine. Whether that's the case, you don't know. I mean, there's a lot of these that have happened in technically the last year. It was only 2025. So that these started early 2025, that these started happening. So it's a lot within that space of time. Could be just a standard statistical margin of error. But it raises the question, is this genuinely natural or could it be manufactured? In this case, because the cause of death is not yet known, it's impossible to say. Conversely, you could argue that any natural cause, if people were inclined to believe otherwise, could be claimed as manufactured. Ultimately, this brings us to a more important point on either side of the argument. You got to ask yourself, what level of proof would be required to persuade me against my own opinions? And if no amount of evidence would change your minds, then perhaps it's the mind itself that's flawed. And this works in both directions. These people who are totally, oh no, it's all absolutely normal, that's just whatever. It works for them as much as it does for the other people, which everything is some sort of conspiracy, or this is the point of finding that middle ground and just thinking a bit logically and saying, well, there's a possibility this might happen. What sort of evidence will I have to be presented with to say, do you know what, there's something might be there? And if any level of evidence is there presented to you, and yet you still don't change your mind, then I think it's probably a mindset, and no matter what, you wouldn't change your mind, in which case it's pointless even having any sort of debate. You always got to be open-minded about these things. After all, what is the point of having a mind if we're not open to changing it based on new evidence? So could this be a foreign government, perhaps China, Russia, maybe another actor, targeting scientists, even in ways designed to appear natural or just fit within a plausible statistical range? Just because it seems natural, it doesn't always necessarily mean, again, go back to that, it could be manufactured, but could it be some sort of government or whatever, some actor, as I say, manufacturing this so that it fits within that bell curve of plausibility? But then you can say that about anything. If it fits within the bell curve's there for a reason. It's to take into consideration these outliers, these periods of whereby it seems abnormal, but actually that's just within the normal statistical range. Or is this just simply just a natural statistical anomaly within that still falls within that bell curve? Don't forget, low plausibility does not mean that it's impossible, and plausible does not mean that it's likely. At present, both possibilities remain with this case, without stronger evidence, knowing anything about the death, knowing any other circumstantial evidence, or there's no, as I say, there's no rumours in the background, there's no hearsay, and a lot can be said for hearsay. You probably filter through about 95% of it, but then sometimes there is elements you can grasp from that. The fact there's nothing with this, the cause of death hasn't been released. It is very quiet. Is it too quiet? But we don't know. At the end of the day, just don't know with this one. Okay, so welcome back. Today we're looking at Anthony Chavez. So I thought this was going to be a great instance of presenting data, going through it all, analysing any inconsistencies, coming up with theories, etc. But I'm totally stumped on this one. I was expecting something similar to the Cassius case, and it was, in some respects, very spookily similar. But in terms of the timeline and the kind of case facts and other things, it was a lot different. It had me stumped. It's got me stumped. Before we go any further, though, if you can like and subscribe and comment, it all helps. It helps me kind of think about what I'm doing, that what I'm doing isn't really just pointless or anything like that. And all the comments, any comments that you think, if there's something interesting that comes to light that you want me to kind of cover, go over, absolutely put it in the comments. I'll take a look at it and even just present it to you without any all the other waffle. But yeah, here we go. So looking into the case, I thought I'd start with the normal, get a bio of whoever's missing, in this case Anthony Chavez. So I started looking into Anthony, and that was the massive hurdle, essentially. So I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to give you the case breakdown first, as reported by the Los Alamos Reporter and also the Boomtown Los Alamos, which are the two local newspapers in Los Alamos. Los Alamos population about 15,000. About that, I think it's slightly less, but they have about 5,000 odd households as well, so very small, close-knit community there. His last social gathering was in April, attending a close friend's birthday. They then spoke again on May 2nd. On May 8th, his brother phoned the friend in question and said he couldn't get in contact. Could he try? But to no avail. His friend, I think, and his wife then drove up to Los Alamos to check on him personally. Anthony's car was in the driveway. No one answered the door. They called the Los Alamos police to perform a welfare check. They all entered the property. It was noted that nothing was amiss apart from Anthony. Fast forward 4 days later. On May 12th, the Los Alamos PD released a missing persons announcement. The Boomtown newspaper noted it had not been able to confirm a reason for the delay in the response. So from the missing date from May 8th, when they attended, he was missing. They didn't release the missing persons announcement until 4 days later, which again is kind of strange. Also noted that by June 25th, publication of the article from Boomtown, they noted that June 12th public record requests for anything relevant to the case had still not been processed. So this thing, they applied on June 12th to the police for the public record request, and what day was it? By June 25th, it was still not released. No information was released on it. Going back to May 19th, so don't forget they released the missing persons on, May 12th. So May 19th, police issue an update saying the search continues, working with multiple agencies. I don't know why the multiple agencies is in there. Presumably, maybe some missing persons unit gets escalated. I don't know. I'm not sure on the American US system compared to other countries. Further to that, this is the announcement on May 19th by the police department. Leave that up there if you wanted to pause and just read that. Announcement by the police on May 19th, the Los Alamos Police Department remains unwavering in its commitment to locating Anthony Chavez and bringing answers to his family and friends. Our officers actively follow every lead, review evidence, and coordinate with multiple agencies and local businesses to find Mr. Chavez. We understand the concern and urgency surrounding the case, and we deeply appreciate the support and cooperation from the community, said Deputy Chief James Rodriguez. Information from the public is invaluable, and we urge anyone who may have seen or heard anything relevant to come forward immediately. Officers have conducted thorough searches of known residents hiked local trails, distributed flyers to businesses, reviewed hours of surveillance footage, and diligently followed up on every tip received. We remain fully committed to utilising all available resources to locate Mr. Chavez and will continue to work with his family during this difficult time. If you have any information that could assist in locating Anthony Chavez, please contact the Emergency Communications Centre. That was the announcement on May 19th. Now, the detective who led the investigation received reports he deemed unfounded, such as Anthony was spotted at the train station in Albuquerque, one saying he was at the airport, reportedly with a lot of baggage. But like all of these have none of these have led to anything concrete. So, and you presume as well, train stations, airports, high CCTV area. I mean, if someone's entered in some way or another, it's going to be caught on CCTV. So if there was anything relevant, you would assume it'd be similar to other cases where they say was last spotted on camera footage here or there or something, and none of that was reported. So you can assume likelihood is they weren't him and they were false reports, which again queries people do get you. There are false reports all the time. I'm assuming people go missing. They think they see someone. It's not them. I mean, that could be something or nothing, you know. It was reported that Chavez did not carry a cell phone, so he never owned a cell phone either. And a record from his landline shows he last made calls on the evening of May 5th. So 3 days before they entered his property. His banking activity also ceased at that time. He reportedly was, like I suppose the best way is an extroverted loner, so he never really kept much company, but he always made friends everywhere he was going as well. So I think that's kind of a good way to describe it. He was also fit and healthy for his age. Frequent long walks and hikes, particularly up Pueblo Canyon Beach, Pueblo Canyon Bench rather, and I've got a image, the bike trail. Oh, that's the bike trail, so I'll add that in. He rode his bike around the town and the Canyon Rim Trail, which I'll show you now. So here's the drop markers, the Canyon Rim Trail, and I pinpointed his house location to there. Sorry for the podcast listeners. And also the bench is there where he used to go for his hikes. Just there. Also, it was noted that he was a fair weather hiker, and around the dates of May 5th to May 8th, there were some storms, so he wouldn't have wandered out, according to his closest friend. On June 18th, volunteers searched this area, so I'm assuming all the hiking trails, even where the Canyon Rim Trail, the bench, Canyon Bench, and also around his nearby sister's house and Chavez's home as well. And they searched this with trained cadaver dogs. Also, according to reports from the Boomtown article, police noted there was no evidence of a struggle within inside his home. Also, and this is direct quote, there was no blood, there was nothing, it was just like he left. Also, his keys, wallet and cigarettes were all on the living room table, and this is important also, leaving cigarettes and stuff. Smokers, ex-smokers, we all know it's kind of more important than, I don't know, I suppose your keys sometimes. Like, when you're going out anywhere, especially someone, if they're a smoker, presumably you smoked for a good few years, it's second nature to grab that kind of stuff, your cigarettes when you leave. So, yeah, that's very strange. Also, to note, no neighbours had any surveillance footage during that time. So, that's the case summary. And as I say, it's more date-based than time frame based. There's still quite a lot of peculiarities in there. Next, let's dive into who is Chavez, and this is where it gets strange. So there is an Anthony Chavez that works at Los Alamos National Laboratory, but that chap is called Mark Anthony Chavez, and he's not the same person as the one that's missing. Like it's just not. So I'll show you. I might have to put this on the full screen. Apologies for the podcast listeners again. So this is Mark Anthony Chavez, and you can see engineering operations and physics and stuff. So this is a clip for Mark Anthony Chavez, the person who is traceable at Los Alamos National Laboratory. It says his name at the top. It's just Anthony Chavez, though, and clearly in the photograph it's a different picture to the one that we're looking for, the Anthony Chavez that's missing. It says engineering, operations and physics. Anthony Chavez, who grew up in Santa Fe, New Mexico, was one of 6 machinist apprentices selected from 300 applicants who started at Los Alamos in 1989 as part of the machinist apprenticeship program. He later earned a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of New Mexico, and for more than 25 years he has worked at DARHT. Chavez's experiences at DARHT have informed other aspects of his work, including when he completed design work for the Scorpius Accelerator, the development of which the laboratory is leading at the Nevada National Security Sites in Nevada. Chavez says that J Division, which operates DARHT, has been a great fit. Everyone works together. He says physicists express what they need, and then we design and engineer a solution, working together to get it done. And now a bit more information on that J division that Mark Anthony Chavez talks about, that he worked in. That's labelled Los Alamos National Laboratory as Integrated Weapons Experiments J Division. Integrated Weapons Experiments J Division. The Los Alamos National Laboratory Integrated Weapons Experiments J Division addresses national security challenges by executing mission-driven, large-scale integrated experiments, emphasizing subcritical experiments, hydrodynamic tests, focused experiments, and tests of engineered systems. J Division operates the dual-axis radiographic hydrodynamic test (DART) facility and operates or utilizes other Los Alamos National Laboratory firing sites and facilities. The division collaborates to execute subcritical and other integrated experiments at the Nevada National Security Site (NNSS) and NNSA, DOE, and is that the Department of Energy, and our partner organizations' facilities as needed. And this is the Chavez that's missing. Clearly not the same person. Okay, so even their timelines don't match up as well as an extra sort of certainty to say it's not the same person. It's not just a wrong image or anything. So Anthony Chavez, is reported that he did not move back to Los Alamos until the 1990s, whereas the Mark Anthony Chavez started Los Alamos in 1989. So, in fact, as hard as I searched, I could not find out any information about R. Anthony Chavez. So I looked back, and I know he was reported he retired previously and everything like that, but I looked back into the time frame he was supposed to work there on the employee database, everything, any publications that was mentioned, because the other Mark Anthony Chavez was mentioned in some articles saying that he hit 30-year anniversary, and I even calculated backwards just to double check it was the same person as that Mark Anthony Chavez, and it was. But there's nothing on Los Alamos National Laboratory website about employees mentioning this Chavez. Like, I've tried to cross-reference everything, look at absolutely everything. Looking for LinkedIn profiles, and there's one again for Mark Anthony. There's not one for R. Anthony Chavez. The only account we actually have of him working there is from his friend. So I find that kind of strange. And it got me thinking, like, this is when I started worrying about what was going on here. Now, his friend was a lawyer, was a lawyer. I don't know if he's still practicing. And it got me thinking, maybe he lied about working at Los Alamos National Laboratory to kind of impress him. He'd moved back to the area in the 90s, perhaps. He sees his friend quite successful. I'm working at the laboratory, that's where I lived there. And he grew up there as well. R. Anthony Chavez grew up in Los Alamos. But perhaps he was just kind of saying he worked there when he didn't. So even when you look at the housing area, so I pinpointed the housing location down, and here's the rough area. It doesn't look like accommodation for someone realistically who you would imagine as some sort of researcher and everything like that, a laboratory. But also to note is I'm pretty sure the police would have corrected this. It's as I say, it's a 15. It's the town of a population of 15,000. People know each other in that sort of community. His sister lives nearby. His best friend has known him for years. The laboratory is literally in Los Alamos. People would have seen him going to work or not going to work. His neighbors would have said, this is made no end of headlines nationally, internationally. We hear about it over here. Someone would have said by now if he didn't work there. It's as easy as that. I mean, it did get me worrying further as well about the fact that I couldn't find anything, and no employees at Los Alamos actually confirmed that he worked there, but then none have not confirmed. And if you're working in a secretive area, high security clearance, you're not going to be talking to the press about things like this. So in a way, that I suppose that could reinforce it. So it's almost like there's no trace of this guy, and that's what I say. It got me worried. But again, such a small community, the reporters would have issued an addendum if he didn't work there. It's been picked up by even the UK newspapers, Daily Mail and some other ones and stuff like that. They would have done their research on it. Even the laboratory probably would have came out and said, no, he didn't work here and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure they would have found some evidence in his house that he worked there. So it's kind of a given that he highly likely did work there, but why there's no trace of him makes you think, was he working in a fairly high security area, like highly secretive part of it? So also I noted that on the government website for missing persons of New Mexico in the police department, there's no report of him. And there was a report I found when I was going through. Actually, I found one because it's about the same time. This was only a month and a bit ago before Cassius disappeared, and there is a report of her missing persons. So I'll just pull that up. This is the missing persons for Cassius. There you go. And again, sorry for the podcast listeners. It's just a poster of the missing persons of Cassius. For the podcast listeners, this is the poster for Melissa Cassius, Missing Endangered Advisory, New Mexico State Police at the top, and the poster itself features New Mexico State Police, emboldened again, missing endangered, name Melissa Cassius, age 53, height 5'4", weight 125 pounds, hair color brown, eyes brown. The New Mexico State Police is asking for the public's help in locating this individual. She was last seen on 26th of June 2025 at approximately 2:15 p.m. walking southbound on New Mexico 518 from Telpa, New Mexico. She was last seen wearing a white and turquoise shirt and blue jeans. If seen, please contact the New Mexico State Police at, and gives the number. And it also says at the bottom in bold, if seen, call 911. But there wasn't one directly on the website for Chavez. But then when you kind of go through the archive section of it, there is one. And so that spurred me on thinking, well, this has to be legitimate. They have got one. So here's the one of Anthony Chavez that's on there. You can see it's a slightly different format, but this is kind of in the background. You had to kind of search for this a bit harder. So it was definitely reported then. And you can see the date missing. They labelled that as the 8th of May. So here's the part where it says he's missing. Okay, so this is the missing persons file on Anthony Chavez. It has the date 01/13/2023, Chavez Anthony next to it, which I'm assuming is the date the photo was taken, which is quite interesting because the photo looks like some sort of, I wouldn't say a passport photo because it didn't look detailed enough. It looks like more a security pass photo more than anything. And it says date missing, 8th of May 2025, age then 78, missing from Los Alamos, NM, New Mexico, age now 79. Anthony Chavez was last seen on the 5th of the 8th, 2025 in Los Alamos, New Mexico. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Anthony Chavez, please contact Los Alamos Police Department. Gives the number. Characteristics, date of birth, 1st 01/07 1947. Sex, male, eye colour brown. Height 5'7", weight 145 pounds. Hair color unknown. Race unknown other. Vehicle, so obviously his vehicle details. Year 2024. Make Acura. Model Acura Integra. Color grey. License is just a state, and license and plate blank. Obviously that's for redaction purposes. And it says contact information, New Mexico Department of Public Safety, missing person hotline and number. So here's a few more bits of data which I'll just put in. Here is the New Mexico Department of Public Safety missing persons information, and you can see there is actually, let me put this full screen, you can see that there is in Los Alamos Anthony Chavez, and this is the database, and when you click on that one it brings you to the missing persons report that I've just showed you. So I was on the brink of pretty much saying this whole story and Anthony himself was totally fabricated, is made up, before I noticed that police notice. Because, so, you know, given the employment and everything not being recognised, everything like that, you know, there's not real any trace of him, just like from his friend. He definitely kept himself kind of off grid, as it were. And again, maybe that's why he kind of lived in that sort of area that he did. You know, and you know, that area that he lived in, if we pull that up, so this is rough street, and as I say, it doesn't really scream like someone like as a researcher or anything, but at the same time, you know, I know academics, people who are highly intelligent people, and you'd walk past them on the street and you think they were homeless or something, the way they dressed. They kind of think on another level. I had a friend of mine as well, which was he's quite into his technology, you know. He was very kind of paranoid. He mapped out all the street cameras, everything on the street, like on an app and all sorts of things. Fantastic guy, super smart. And there was another person I knew, academic, highly intelligent, well, PhD student. He used to basically live in a motorhome and park it on campus. And then even when he started working, he just parked on his workplace in the car park and just turned up that way. So I think when you kind of, it says to me that that all fits with the profile of someone who was probably highly intelligent, a bit eccentric, a bit paranoid, probably from the security sort of element that he worked in with his job, not having a mobile phone and stuff like that. It kind of matches that personality type, and it also makes it even stranger how much he's disappeared, really. So it's interesting to note in relation to this case then that this was only a month or so before Cassius, as I said, and there are very similar conditions. The keys on the table left there, the car in the driveway, the wallet left there, the cell phone was left in Cassius's instance, but I mean, if he had one here and hers were wiped, I'm assuming if he had one as well, the same thing highly likely would have happened. And it's so strange that, especially leaving cigarettes on there as well, that's instinctual. That's something you have to really kind of actively think, I'm not taking them, you know, because that's an addiction. So, and again, going back to the credentials in working there, he's, you know, his small town, people would have known if he was a local crazy guy or something like that. Even though there's no excuse, someone, whoever disappears, they disappear, or needs looking into, irrespective. And I think if it was the case that it was more that than eccentric researcher at the lab, then people locally would know. The news reporter in a small place like that, in a 15,000 population, would know. You know, people would say, I mean, they would have asked the neighbours about it, everything like that. Yeah, and his best friend, his sister lives in the area. Everyone knows everyone's business in small towns, you know. And so it would have been pointed out beforehand. An addendum would have been made by the papers. As I say, these other papers have taken this up, and they would have done their research on this as well. So has his employment history been erased or something? Has it all been hidden? Has it been hidden from the start when he started working there? Again, high security clearance area, everything being a bit more secretive than what it is normally. And you've got to think as well, the people that work there, or his colleagues or something like that, would they come out and say anything? Highly likely not. They work in a secretive area, high security clearance. They're not going to talk to the press. They're just going to keep everything pretty secret about what's happened. Don't talk to anyone like that. So that kind of element of no one saying that they've worked with him doesn't surprise me. It just kind of reinforces the fact that probably he worked there and it was more high security. So overall, this one is, and I'll save a conclusion for the conclusion video, but I mean, we've all got to like admit, like looking at the facts on this, this is strange. This is stranger than Cassius. I mean, they're on par. The evidence is there with each other, and ultimately, you got to think it's another person gone. Another one of these researchers in this strange sort of bubble, all kind of starting from, well, not starting from, but the investigation in hindsight is starting from McCasland's disappearance. Looking back on it, it's another person gone. A month and a half later, another person gone. You know, in very similar conditions. Like I get things like this happen, but I've mentioned previously on other videos about the level of security clearance, the monitoring, and I know he was retired, but did he know something? Did he know something that they didn't want releasing? I don't know. Maybe it's all speculative. Maybe it is all made up. Maybe the case is fabricated. I don't see it. I don't see why it would be. Looking at the each newspapers, the stories, the quotes from the police department, the notification of a missing person on the police department. It's just, yeah. I'll save the conclusions for the conclusion video, but I think with this video, you kind of know where I'm going with this.